listening to the Straight to Video podcast with Rob Lane.
What's up, everyone, and welcome along to a brand new Straight to Video podcast. Well, when I started this show back in the summer last year, I had a few people in mind who I'd like to get on as a guest on the show. Musician buddies, maybe reach out to a few people on Facebook who'd starred in some of my favourite 80s films, but man, I never would have thought that I'd get the chance to speak to John Schneider. Like John Schneider, you know, Bo Duke from Dukes of Hazzard and Jonathan Kent from Smallville. This guy has seen and done it all, and I would say that at the height of the Duke's fame in the late 70s and 80s, he would have been one of the most famous and most recognisable actors around. So yeah, I am stoked to get the chance to have him speak to me on my tiny little show, and you know what? He was a joy. Just large enough in life as you want a movie star to be, but sharing great stories and being a top guy. Mr. Schneider lives and works in Holden, Louisiana, which is one of the southern states in the USA. Rather than being based out in Los Angeles or New York, he runs his own studio from there and writes, creates and produces his own movies and shows with the help of his wife Alicia, and they've just released a new film called Stand On It, which is John's tribute to the classic films Smokey and the Bandit and the late great Burt Reynolds. Now, a little known fact appears to be that whilst uncredited, John actually appears in Smokey and the Bandit right at the end. Apparently, before he shot to fame in the Dukes of Hazzard, he heard about the film being shot and jumped the fence to appear as an extra in a scene right at the end. So, talk about things coming full circle. But yeah, as a lot of you probably did, I used to watch the Dukes of Hazzard at my grandparents' house every weekend. My Uncle Tim had a red Jeep, which he even had fitted with the Dukes of Hazzard car horn. That show was huge, and then for him to be cast in Smallville as Superman's dad, well, he became just as well known to a whole new generation of fans. If you want to find out more about John Schneider following our talk, then head on over to johnschneiderstudios.com, where you can find out all about John's movies and incredibly successful music career too, along with links to their company Cineflix, where you can stream all their latest releases, including Stand On It, and even John's own horror movie called Smothered, featuring Kane Hodder and Bill Moseley. Or you can go direct to Cineflix at cineflixdod.com. Really do hope you enjoy this chat as much as I did, so please sit back and enjoy my straight-to-video talk with Mr. Bo Duke himself, John Schneider.
Oh, come on, I'll watch you, some bitch.
Let's take it down, boys. Yeah, I'm living my life 1 mile at a time, and I'm all hopped up on caffeine. Our gear jamming Superman, Jerry Reed's biggest fan. I love truck stop cuisine. My daddy told me when I was a boy, the road is gonna get rough. When it does, just smile, son. Gear down and buckle up, and just stand on it. You gotta just stand on it. You gotta just stand on it and don't give up till you're done.
You're living and working in Louisiana now. How long have you been out there for?
I've been here since 2011.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. It's a great, cinematically, it's a wonderful place. People are great. It's a terrific place to be creative. And the food is amazing. The food is amazing.
Because you're kind of like southern, more towards like New Orleans kind of area.
We're right outside of Baton Rouge. We're probably an hour from New Orleans, maybe a little less, and 40 minutes from Baton Rouge. So yeah, we're in a great part of the world, wonderful people. And I love it. I'm an adopted Southerner and a recovering Yankee.
Because my dad actually lives in Vicksburg. He's been there since the late 70s. Yeah. I used to spend my summer vacations out in Mississippi.
We were just there. We were there at a dirt track last week or the week before last. Yeah.
No, I love it over there. They've got a lot of family, so it's a lovely place. Really is, really is.
Terrific.
What originally attracted you to the area?
Back in the 80s, when I was doing a lot of music, there was always something about Louisiana that made me feel at home. When I had put up with as much as I could possibly put up with in a marriage that had fallen apart, and her too. I mean, she had put up with as much as she could put up with too. You know, we hung in there as long as we could, and then about 7 years longer than that.
Right.
Which I don't recommend because you wind up hating each other. But I did flee to the wonderful state of Louisiana. So, and I've been here ever since. it was both good and bad. It was escaping a miserable existence. And I hope you can tell one thing I don't ever want to be is miserable. And I don't recommend it. Although I did write some great crime drama during that time.
Get some good songs out of it as well, I guess.
Yeah. They say you can't really sing the blues until you've lived them. And I think a lot of my subsequent material had something to do with that whole time. And, there's a rasp in my voice now that wasn't there before. That might have something to do with age. Just might. I
read that when you used to go to the movies in your local cinema, you said you could almost see yourself on the screen and knew it was something that you had to do and was going to do.
Yeah. Well, it's actually, I looked up there and I thought, that's where I'm supposed to be. And it's a very difficult feeling to try to explain, because it wasn't like, gee, I want to be up there. It was like, oh, that's where I'm supposed to be. So because of that, I knew there was a lot of work involved, but I tell people, expect great things. So I grew up expecting to be on the big screen. I don't want to say I didn't want to be, because I did, but more than that, I expected to be there. And I think that goes for a lot of people, especially in the music world. There are people who want to play for 100,000 people and people who know they will. And I was one of those. And whatever it is you're designed to be, I believe you will know it when you see it. And that's usually when you're about 8 years old.
Does it almost feel comfortable even before you've done it?
Yeah. So when it is in the process of happening, people say, wow, were you surprised? And I don't want to sound cocky, because it's not cocky. It was, no, I wasn't surprised. It was like, oh, there it is. There's the first opportunity that will push me in that direction. And oh, there's the next opportunity. And because, again, I expect great things. My wife and I have made a bunch of movies now, and the goal has been, as it is for every independent filmmaker, I hope, the goal should not be to make a movie that someone will buy and save you from. The goal should be to make a movie that you distribute that makes so much money that it not only pays for itself, but allows you to make the next one. So I have been expecting to do that with every movie we've made. The movie before this one actually did that. And the one we just did it in a month. So, we're creeping up on it. And now I do believe that we have tremendous success, not only in our sights, but in our grasp. But we had to do the work.
Mm-hmm. Getting all that groundwork in.
Yeah. A lot of people think, and occasionally it happens, someone will out of nowhere make a movie and the movie will do incredibly well. But that's very rare. Most of the time, it's someone's 4th, 5th, 6th, 100th movie, that they've worked on, or they're doing their 100th YouTube video, whatever in the world that they live in, that garners the kind of attention that they're looking for. You've got to keep your eyes forward. You've got to continue to be focused. You've got to continue to create. You've got to block out all of that which tells you what you are trying to do is impossible. Because let's face it, impossible, it just takes a little more time. That's all.
You just got to keep that consistency, keep fine-tuning things.
Yeah.
You think it's something that happens around 8 years old. So what is this when you was in New York State, in Mount Kisco? That's when you was going to the cinema.
Yes, it was. In New York State, the Mount Kisco Theater, I would go to a double feature. I had a Super 8 camera later. Maybe I was 10 years old or so, and I would make movies on my Super 8 camera. Fascinated with my father's 16 millimeter camera and that big, projector. In fact, I put that whole visual of slides and a 16 millimeter projector in a movie we did about 3 years ago called Inadmissible. It's quite an effective visual. So if you want to see a very interesting crime drama about, can bad people have good children, or can bad children come from good parents? It's kind of a nature versus nurture. And I play a bad man. It's great. It's great fun. It's fun. So check that out. It's called Inadmissible.
Awesome. So what was some of your kind of favorite films on those double bills?
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, that was 69. I was a big Redford fan. I'm still a big Redford fan, but he did another one called 3 Days of the Condor. In the world of John Wayne, it's kind of hard to get a better story, more finely executed than a movie called The Cowboy. Wonderful film. During that time, probably Rosemary's Baby, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Wonderful, wonderful movies like that. Casablanca, they would bring back movies like that. They weren't that old at that point, but Lawrence of Arabia, Dr. Zhivago.
Was you a solo movie goer, or was there a bunch of friends all went together?
Occasionally, a buddy of mine would go, but I was like, riveted watching everything. The Wild Bunch. I remember when I was first introduced to Sam Peckinpah. My gosh, wonderful storytelling, horrifically done, but still wonderful, wonderful storytelling. Straw Dogs, cool stuff like that. The great old horror films, Frankenstein and Dracula. Now when I look at the Creature from the Black Lagoon, it's pretty funny. But Frankenstein holds up. And then the world of comedy, we got into, everybody had their Mel Brooks. I think everybody still has their Mel Brooks time. You've got to love silent movie. You've got to love Blazing Saddles, certainly. So those were the kind of films I watched a lot of.
One really cool story I read was that you rescued some parts of the Broadmoor Theatre in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
We did.
And when it was being torn down, so to get a second life. Had the theatre closed by the time you actually got there?
Yeah, it had been closed, but by the time I was even aware of it, the seats were all a mess. And it was at one point a single-screen movie theater that became 2, that then became 4. So they bastardized it over the years to try to keep it open. And it's where my wife, Alicia, used to go to see all the Disney movies when she was a little girl.
Oh, right. So she had an attachment to it.
Yeah. So we got the sign, which is a huge sign. And if you watch Stand on It, it's at the very end of Stand on It. We drive under that sign, and then the frame freezes and we roll credits. At the moment, it's got Yeehaw on it. You can also see Broadmoor up there. But it's one of those wonderful 1962, I think it was built, 2 years after I was built. And so it's great. We have it here, and it's right next door to what we are going to have. We're going to start a drive-in theater here next weekend.
That might be the future, after all this crap that's going down. That might be something that thrives.
I think so. I think so. I grew up going to drive-ins as well, other than the Mount Kisco Theater. Part of growing up in the summer, certainly in New York and in Cape Cod, was going to a drive-in theater. So the end of 2020, Alicia and I brought the band. They're called Stars and Bars. We brought them to several drive-in theaters, did a 90-minute concert, and then showed Stand on It, which is our tribute to Smokey and the Bandit. That's the one that has been a grand slam for us.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah, it's so great. So great.
You moved from New York to Georgia when you were 14, just as you were turning a teenager. Was that a big deal for you back then, leaving your hometown and friends?
Oh, I was devastated.
Yeah.
I tried to make my mother promise me that when we still hated it, in 2 weeks, we'd move back. And, at 14, you just think your friends are your world. But I discovered theater a lot more. I did theater in New York, but I discovered an entire group of theater buffs in Atlanta and at the high school I went to, and quickly forgot not about my friends, but quickly forgot about my desire to move back. Yeah, it was quite wonderful. The last play that I did in New York was Fiddler on the Roof. We did a truncated version of it. And then the first musical I did in Atlanta in high school was Fiddler on the Roof. So that was kind of like reassurance all along the way that you are indeed on the right path. Little things that would come in because I expect great things. If you expect bad things, guess what'll happen?
It's like you're a magnet in a way for certain ways of thinking.
Yeah.
You mentioned one big moment for you is when you found $100 bill in a bowling alley and used it to join a gym.
Oh, you're good. You're so good.
Because you wanted to get in shape as you felt that was important.
I would love to say that was all my idea, but it wasn't. It was my brother. We were at a place called Six Flags over Georgia, and I was wolfing down my second or third slice of pizza. And my brother said, so I guess you've given up on this whole movie star thing, huh? And I said, no, why? Why do you say that? And he said, well, how many obese movie stars do you know? And this was when Burt Reynolds had done Deliverance and Gator. This is when Jan Michael Vincent was a movie star. This is when Clint Eastwood, who still is very, very much alive and kicking, was in his prime. So it was that little comment. I put my pizza down and decided I was going to lose weight. So at that moment, I went on a low carbohydrate diet. I was 16 years old. I went to 60 carbohydrates a day, and in 2 months, I had lost 50 pounds. And during that time, we went to a bowling alley in Sandy Springs, Georgia. I was playing a pinball game, dropped my quarter, and found a $100 bill underneath the pinball machine. Expect great things. Right across the street, which was a fairly substantial street called Roswell Road, now it's damn near an interstate, was a brand new gym called Nautilus, which at that point was sports medicine. They had a big sign up, said grand opening, 1 year membership, $100. Get in the best shape of your life.
Just said it all to you.
It did. So I went home. I did go home and I discussed it with my mom because $100 was a whole lot of money to all of a sudden have and to give up. But I did. I decided to go and I joined Nautilus. Oh, it was 3 years. 3 years for $100. So I joined Nautilus, started working out, and in 2 months' time, I had lost 50 pounds and wound up doing a show called The Pajama Game in high school. And in the Pajama Game, I played Sid Sorokin. And in that, you're wearing your pajama bottoms. So I went from a very heavy, soon-to-be obese 16-year-old to a 16-year-old with my shirt off and pajama bottoms in the High School Musical during one summer vacation.
How did that affect your confidence as well?
It gave me more confidence, but I got to tell you, I've never had a lack of, it's not so much a lack. I mean, I will go for it. I'll go for it because I believe in, in following my gut. And it's not so much confidence as I have no fear of failing.
Right.
Hope that makes sense. I don't look at failure as devastating. I look at failure as having found yet another way something doesn't work.
Yeah, there's those people who keep pushing through. It depends on what you kind of depict as failure in a way, I guess. Is it just another stumbling block and let's move forward from that? Learn from your, not necessarily mistakes.
Yeah, you get up and you no, they're mistakes. I make lots of mistakes and I make them boldly. I had a wonderful choral teacher when I did Fiddler on the Roof and Annie Get Your Gun and Pajama Game. His name was Mr. King, and one of his sayings in chorus class was, "A loud mistake is better than a soft nothing." So I guess I have lived by that. And so far, most people just remember the loud things that worked. But there's been plenty loud things that didn't. But that's okay. That's okay.
It's a story that's been out there quite a while, but perhaps for those who may not be aware, you actually went to your Dukes of Hazzard audition technically in the role of Bo Duke in character.
I did. I gave them, I'd heard that they wanted people 24 to 30 from rural Georgia with no acting experience. Well, I was 18 from Westchester County, New York, and I'd been doing theater for 10 years. So I went there and told them I was 24 from Smallville, Georgia. I brought with me a 6-pack of beer, torn up T-shirt, and told them I really thought I would be great in this television show because I just had graduated first in my class at the Georgia School of High Performance Driving, which didn't exist. And I got their attention. I mean, I didn't walk in and then I got the part. Was like 5.5 weeks in Los Angeles auditioning every week.
Oh, right. Okay.
It was, that was the first audition. Second audition was a week later in Atlanta. Third was a week after that in California. And then fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh. So it was an 8-week process.
I didn't realize that because wasn't Dukes of Hazzard originally shot in Georgia, but then moved to California?
It was. Yeah, but it was produced in the producers were in California. CBS executive branch was in California, certainly. Warner Brothers was in California. Yeah, we moved back to California after we did the first 5 episodes.
How was your kind of first Hollywood experience as an 18-year-old in that audition process?
It was great. They were giving me $25 a day in per diem. And I was able to pay off my Triumph TR6 with my per diem, although I could never get the Lucas electric system to work. But no, it was great. I would rehearse Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, audition Thursday, and find out something on Friday. Maybe the audition was on Friday, but it was a great time. I was introduced to the Rainbow Room on Sunset Boulevard. I remember going there. I don't remember leaving, but I woke up on someone's couch still wearing my boots and very little else.
Who was you rubbing shoulders with in there? Because that's a bit of a rock star hangout.
I don't know. But I loved the notion of walking on the Walk of Fame. I went to places to see where W.C. Fields lived and Charlie Chaplin lived, and spent a lot of time on the Warner Brothers backlot where they shot Music Man, where we eventually shot Dukes of Hazzard. It's also the same place where John Wayne did his last film, The Shootist. It's also where they did Blazing Saddles. So I spent a whole lot of time just wandering around the lot that had now come off the movie screen, and I was now in it. So even during the audition process, no kidding, I would go back there in the little set that was Laramie Street, that was Rock Ridge in Blazing Saddles, and just breathe. I would breathe it in and knew that I was home, not in Hollywood, not at all in Hollywood, but on a back lot, totally submerged in the world that made motion pictures.
Did it feel comfortable immediately?
Completely. That did. But Hollywood and California, I tell people that I lived there for 35 years, I think, and it was like a beautiful pair of finely made $20,000 alligator shoes that didn't fit.
I get you.
Yep. It never worked for me.
Did you and Tom Wopat, who played Luke Duke, did you both gel pretty quickly? Because he was around 10 years older than you.
Oh, yeah. We got along right away because when I met him, he had his guitar. And he loved James Taylor and Jim Croce, and so did I. So we passed the guitar back and forth and played music. He also had just come off of a Broadway show, which was a huge goal of mine, was to, one day be on the Great White Way. So we had musical theater in our background. And I think that's why Bo and Luke Duke appeared to have known each other all of their lives, because we had very similar backgrounds. We had all built sets. We had all hung lights. We had all done hair and makeup for ourselves. Both of us had sewn costumes. We'd been on stage. We'd been backstage. We'd been off stage. And there's a certain sameness and a camaraderie that people who have done that share that other people just don't get. You can usually tell when someone is on a television show or on a movie who has no theater background. They're generally not as forgiving as theater folk. I love theater folk. I'm a theater folk. What can I say? Theater brat.
Once like Dukes of Hazzard kind of exploded, was there a particular day or when you went out that when you saw something or something happened where you was like, wow, things aren't going to be the same again, when your life actually changed?
I'd be lying if I said there was such a day, because it's a lot of work. We did 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, 10 months a year. Rain or shine, no matter what, 6 o'clock in the morning, out there so it was a lot of wonderful work, but it was tiring. Like if your job was to go to Disney World every day for 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, 10 months a year, eventually you'd be going, oh my God. But I say that because you're kind of sequestered away. So we did 5 episodes. We came back. They ordered more episodes. As my memory serves, they ordered more episodes right away. So by the time Dukes started to air, and it was an immediate success, bam, first night, top 20, everybody, Burt Reynolds was king. Smokey and the Bandit had made $300 million. And here's a couple of guys driving a car like nobody's business and jumping over things. And there's a beautiful girl, and there's morality and Uncle Jesse. And it was just great. But we started filming the subsequent episodes, I think either right after or just before the first one aired. So we were away. So we didn't have a chance to go out anywhere and have people go, oh. So the first time that any of that happened, I was back in Atlanta, and I went to the mall I used to go to all the time. It's called Perimeter Mall, my brother and I. And once people realized it was me, so this was like 6 months, 8 months after the show had aired. And I remember saying to a friend, because you could walk around LA, and still to this day, nobody in LA will admit that they're a fan of anything. So, they're all much too good for that. I remember saying to a friend, well, this whole household name thing sure is hard to deal with. Like nothing. But when my brother and I, remember, it's my brother who I was at Six Flags with 3 years earlier. People realized it was me, had all that hair, and he had to call security to get me out. It was like the Beatles. It was like Michael Jackson. I was on the #1 show, or one of the top 5 shows in a 3-network world. And I realized, this is exactly what I wanted.
You asked for it.
Well, I did. But you remember, I grew up watching the Beatles. I grew up when the Beatles were together, I was listening to their music. And I saw Help, and I saw the Beatles being chased by women through Liverpool or wherever in the world that took place. I saw the Monkees being chased by women. And I thought, that doesn't suck. Yes, I know I'm supposed to be up there, but if that's part of it, sign me up. So it was great. It was wonderful.
The Dukes of Hazzard, it was like, particularly for us in the UK, it was kind of like an integral part of golden US TV shows, such as The A-Team, Dallas, Knight Rider, Airwolf. Did you enjoy any of those shows back then? Was you a fan?
The A-Team I thought was great. The other one, Airwolf, I thought Airwolf was great. That's Jan Michael Vincent, right?
Who actually moved to Mississippi as well.
Oh,
yeah.
The late Jan Michael Vincent, right? He passed away.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big fan of George Peppard. There was a movie way back when called The Blue Max. There was a television show called Banachek, and he was the leader of the A-Team. So I like that. Our stunt guys, the same stunt guys, did Dukes, the A-Team, Fall Guy, and Knight Rider.
Wow.
And I think they might have done Airwolf too. There was one group of top-notch, stellar stunt folks in Hollywood at that time who've all gone on to become, well, a lot of them are retired now, and a lot of them are dead now. But many of them became top stunt coordinators in their own right. Jack Gill, who I went to high school with, who then doubled me for a time on Dukes of Hazzard, did the last 4 Fast and Furious as a stunt coordinator. So our folks have really done quite remarkable things who came from that show, that era. But I wasn't a Knight Rider fan. I got to tell you, I wasn't a Knight Rider fan. No, it was almost too high tech and slick. I like dirt roads.
Good call on the Fall Guy, though. That's one I missed off my list.
Fall Guy's great. Lee Majors, wonderful. Wonderful.
I recall watching the Dukes of Hazzard at my grandparents' with my uncle on Saturday evenings, so things like that will always be super special for me. And my uncle even had the Duke's car horn on his Jeep back in the day, in the early 80s. That's going through our small town in the UK. But you've not only had the chance to be on one iconic TV show, but then you played the role of Jonathan Kent in Smallville, which brought you into the lives of yet another generation of TV watchers.
Right,
That's got to be kind of rewarding to know your career has spanned generations.
It's terrific. But remember, I expect great things.
You're in it for the long haul.
Absolutely. I'm just getting started. I really am. I'm just getting started. When I read the script finally for Smallville, I thought it was one of the best screenplays I'd ever read. So at that point, I thought, this is the next big step. This is the next big opportunity. This is the next great thing that I've been expecting to come along. So I went out and I read for Warner Brothers, not CBS this time. That was the WB, and wound up getting that role. But I was not, when I read it, I thought, that's me. This is not something I have to try to be. This is not some face I have to put on. That is me. That was written because the universe knows this is the next great thing. So I loved it. I enjoyed Smallville very, very much. I think that if there is a worst episode of Smallville, and I don't think there is, but if there is a worst episode of Smallville, it's better than the best Superman movie.
It's a bold statement, sir.
Well, I think they've just continued to misunderstand not only the source material and the heart of it, but the audience. I think they're in the turd pot. We used to say you can't polish a turd. And those who have continued to make almost unwatchable Superman movies, I think, feel that they can polish a turd, or at least they can sell a bunch of very shiny turds.
Can't polish one, but you can roll it in glitter.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and it's too bad because I do believe that Superman is the quintessential superhero. I think Superman is of course, I raised Clark Kent, but Superman is at the core of everything that is right with superheroes. All you have to do to have an anti-hero is have him, put Superman in the center, say, okay, and then go this way. Go as far from what is true and right and just in the other direction. But you have to know where top dead center is. You've got to know where that is. But they don't. They keep it's embarrassing.
That's probably why they have to keep rebooting it, to try and figure out what went wrong.
Well, they ought to have somebody that appreciates the source material do it. I was in Vancouver doing something else. It was after Smallville for me. I can't remember when they did Man of Steel. But they were location scouting. A bunch of my friends we're location scouting for the new Superman movie. Oh, that's great. How's the script? Well, they haven't written it yet. Well, what's the budget? Oh, it's $300 million. But wait a minute. How are you location scouting for a script and how in the world can you budget a script So what they did is they shot a budget, not a film. That can't ever work. Never, never, never. Case in point, Deadpool #2. Deadpool was fantastic. Talk about here's Superman, here's Deadpool. That was wonderful, wonderful. But, Deadpool #2 was exactly that, Deadpool, and it was #2.
Your film and TV CV is incredibly consistent over the past couple of decades, but now you film and produce your own work alongside being on new shows like The Have and Have Nots, which I think you've been on since 2013.
Again, that's a whole other show for a whole new generation. It's really cool. And I want to clarify something. My wife produces. Producing is hard. Writing and directing is like, okay, let's see. What do we got here? And acting is showing up. So she does the hard part. I prefer what we're doing. We make the movies we want to make with the people we want to make them with in the manner in which we want to make them. Living absolutely, truly living the life. It is a dream come true. And now it's working financially. Not only are the movies doing well, but they're making people go back into we have our own streaming platform called Cineflix, DOD. Show you how backwards Hollywood is. They still call it VOD. They call it video on demand. It hasn't been video in 20 years, maybe 30.
But now you've just released your brand new film, Stand on It. When did you get the idea for this as kind of a tribute to Smokey and the Bandit? Was it something that's been bouncing around for some time?
It has been bouncing around to the extent that I talked about it with not only with Burt Reynolds, but Hal Needham way back when, about how for some reason Hollywood dropped the whole genre of what Burt and Hal and I called Southern horsepower comedy, which is a certain recipe, and obviously they don't know what it is because when they made that god-awful Dukes of Hazzard movie, they missed everything. So we discussed, one of these days, I said, when I get my hands on the controls, I'm going to bring that back. Because certainly that's what Dukes of Hazzard was. Certainly that's what Smokey and the Bandit and Cannonball Run.
Hooper. Drop Hooper in there.
Hooper was great. That's where I was first aware of Jimmy Bett, who played Roscoe. And I think the first time he went was in Hooper. But yeah, so that had been noodling around in my brain for a long time. But of course, I like psychological drama. I like the movies that Alicia and I made. I like crime. I like, the darker stuff. I skew a little more twisted than you possibly think. But 2 years ago, when the big news was the flag on top of the General Lee, and therefore anyone who drove the General Lee and anyone who was on the Dukes of Hazzard is a tacit racist. I said, hang on. Symbols don't hurt people. People hurt people. And from that, my wife said, you need to write a movie about that, about a guy whose life comes to an end because people are judging him because of something that he believes they misunderstand. So we did a movie called Christmas Cars, like driving cars. Did it right here at the studio. I edited it right here where I'm sitting right now, and it did great. It's the first one that paid for itself. So at that point, Alicia says, we were talking about we did Christmas cars, let's do birthday cars, let's do anniversary cars, let's do Valentine's cars. But somewhere in there, she said, Burt passed away. So when Burt passed away, all heart and soul and focus was on Burt. And people started asking me, hey, weren't you in Smokey and the Bandit? So I was telling them the story about how I wound up in Smokey and the Bandit and how Burt and I actually became very good friends, and Hal Needham as well. And she said, you need to write a script about that. And I said, what, Smokey and the Bandit? She said, no, but it needs to be a tribute to Smokey and the Bandit because really you're the only one who cares, who could make the movie. So I did. So I wrote a movie called Stand on It, which was the working title of a movie Burt did back in 1977, I think it was, called Stroker Ace. The working title of that when they filmed it in Georgia was Stroker Ace. And it's a movie where John Schneider, the Duke, gets bet $500,000 that he can't do for real what Burt Reynolds did for pretend in that movie back in 1976. So honestly, I think it's really good, but it's really clever. It's really, really clever. I'm very proud of Stand on It. And we made it during the worst possible year. My gosh, Hollywood didn't make anything. Hollywood just shut down. They said, we don't care. We're not going to give you anything to watch. They could have done something, but they didn't. again, like a $20,000 pair of shoes that don't fit. So we made this movie. We first showed it to people at drive-in theaters here in Alabama and Tennessee. They loved it. We put it out on DVD and on our streaming service, cineflixdod.com. And it has done so well that I'm now in the process of writing Poker Run, which is our next film that we're going to shoot. The one I'm doing the trailer for right now is called 1 Month Out, which is actually kind of a crime drama romp through dementia. Figure that out. Told you I skew a little darker than people think. But we're going to be filming Poker Run coming up here March, April, and May. So it's going to be great fun. But if people want to see, and I hope you do, don't buy the DVD if you're in the UK, because the shipping fees are now, I don't know what happened.
Oh, it's insane.
But what you can do is you can go to cineflixdod.com and you can stream it right now. You can even there's a promo code. If you put in a promo code, as long as you're over the pond, this will work. It's called Worldwide, WORLDWIDE, Worldwide. And you get like 25% off of the so it's even cheaper. And it's like $8.99 here. So with your promo code, I don't know what it winds up being in euros, but probably $6.
Excellent. Did you see Burt Reynolds in the last Movie Star film?
Oh, it was great.
Oh, so good.
It was wonderful. I was at the premiere of that. The last time I saw Burt was at the premiere of that, or one of the premieres. I think they did quite a number of them. I didn't actually see the movie until after he passed away, because I tried to track him down many times during that last spark, because at the end, he was a movie star again. He was sought after. He was everywhere. He wrote a book. And every time I called him, he said, I'm not in Florida. I'm in wherever I am, but maybe next week. next week. And then he passed away. But we did communicate, and he did know that the kid who snuck onto the set of Smokey and the Bandit was still hopelessly in love with the movie star and everything Burt Reynolds was. But I didn't get the chance to tell him what a fantastic job he did in that movie. I think it was his shining moment, honestly. I think it was his best work. And he did great work. But that one, folks, if you have not seen The Last Movie Star, don't even watch Stand on It. Get The Last Movie Star.
It's unreal.
Oh, he was remarkable, a remarkable man, and I think the quintessential movie star. There's a difference, like Peter O'Toole said in My Favorite Year. I'm not an actor, I'm a movie star. Burt was both.
I'll bring things to a close, John, because I don't want to keep you on too long.
Alrighty.
But I love that you now work, create and film in your own studios in Louisiana, but it's also like a full-blown cottage industry where everything is in-house, from movies,
Yes.
but also like the merchandise, and you even recorded the soundtrack to Stand on It as well.
Yep.
Is this something you've learned over the years, that it is possible to do all these things in-house, or is it a reaction to your experiences in the industry itself?
Well, really, in Hollywood during the studio system, which I got there just after that, the whole contract actor system, they had everything there. So it kind of made sense to me. It wasn't until later that the sound was taken somewhere else and the color correction was somewhere else. I mean, the only thing they would send out, they needed to do a cross dissolve or something. They would send out, it was called a visual effect. Cross dissolve would take like 3 or 4 days. And then what happens if you got it in the wrong spot? Like, oh my gosh. But I had always dreamed of having everything in-house. Now, we don't record the music here. We record the music in Nashville. That's where I think the greatest musicians in the world are. And there's a vibe there. There's a vibe in Muscle Shoals. There's a vibe in, there are different vibes musically where you are right now too. But I like the Nashville vibe. So we record the music there, and then I bring the music down here and I incorporate it into the films.
But you're still totally hands-on with it anyway.
Yeah, oh yeah. But remember, back again, I'm a theater brat. And when you're a theater brat, many times you write the show with your friends, you build the sets with your friends, you do the hair and makeup with your friends, you hang lights. In many regards, I've now come back to what I was doing in 1968. It just happens to be with, computers and and with movies, not with theater. So it seems like a perfectly natural enterprise to me.
I love that you've just got control over everything. I think it's amazing.
Well, if you're going to tell a story, if you're a storyteller, you don't want outside influence. You want to tell your story. You don't want to tell our collective story necessarily. At least I don't. I do know there's so many hands in it. You have to have all those hands and all that experience and all the integrity and creativity. That all has to be in there. But back to the Superman thing, it all has to go back to that story that you, the storyteller, want to tell. And they help you tell it better than you ever possibly could by yourself. But it's still your story. Okay.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it.
Thank you, my friend. Come back to Mississippi.
Hey, nice.
You take care.
Cheers,
Bye-bye.
mate. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Thank you so much to John Schneider for taking the time to talk to me here on the Straight to Video podcast. That really did tick all the pop culture boxes, but it's also great to know he's still at the top of his game, moving with the times and staying perhaps more productive than ever. Remember to visit johnschneiderstudios.com for more information or stream the new film Stand On It at cineflixdod.com. I'm excited to also announce that the new Straight to Video podcast is now live, and you can find that at stvpod.com. Nice and easy. There you can listen to all previous episodes of the show. There's over 60 now, along with links to all the music and videos that Straight to Video has produced over the last few years. There's also a new shop where you can pick up the latest Straight to Video logo share, and hopefully I'll be adding some more new things real soon. So please visit stvpod.com and let me know what you think. In the meantime, thank you all for the support you continue to show the podcast. I'm kind of feeling that we're on a bit of a roll right now with lots of good things happening, so thank you for being a part of that. Until I catch you all again, look after yourselves and speak real soon.